arguments, though, and this really takes your breath away. And this also, I think, underscores the real danger to this country by this president's continued occupancy of the Oval Office, is the argument that Jay Sekulow made, essentially that the president has good reason not to trust his own intelligence agencies, and the corollary of that is he has good reason to trust Vladimir Putin more. Okay? That is hard to wrap your head around, but that is the argument of the president's lawyer. He has every right to disbelieve his own intelligence agencies and thereby accept the opinion of our adversary, Vladimir Putin. Everything is perfect, including the president's performance in Helsinki, apparently. Now, they say that it's a false choice to say, well, if Russia intervened in the election, why couldn't Ukraine have intervened? Never mind that that contradicts what our own intelligence agencies, what our own FBI director, what our own bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee found, what the Democrats on the House Intelligence Committee found, what the Republicans on the House Intelligence Committee sometimes admit and sometimes not. Never mind all of that. They say, why couldn't both countries have intervened? Well, first, they didn't. Okay? There was only one systemic interference in our election, that was by Russia. But second, what they're talking about here, what the president is talking about here, is the server, Well, unless we're to believe that both Russia and Ukraine hacked the same server and were responsible for the same hacking and dumping campaign, then we are talking about one country's interference, and that is Russia. And that the president continues to this day, through his lawyer, to say that they should trust the opinion of Vladimir Putin and Russian intelligence propaganda over their own intelligence agencies about this whole CrowdStrike, kooky, crazy conspiracy theory, ought to alarm every American. They also, and this is the overarching argument, continue to maintain the president did nothing wrong. This may be the most dangerous point they make.
This is True News. I'm Rick Wiles. The FBI is investigating the role of Israeli spyware vendor NSO Group Technologies in possible hacks on American citizens and companies, as well as suspected intelligence gathering on governments, according to 4 sources who spoke with Reuters. The FBI probe started in 2017 when federal agents sought to learn whether NSO obtained from hackers inside the USA any of the code it needed to infect smartphones. NSO is an Israeli company that says it only sells surveillance software to governments for the purpose of tracking criminals and terrorists. It is best known for its Pegasus software, tools that can capture everything on a phone, including the text of encrypted messages, and commandeer it to record audio. NSO made news headlines in January when it was alleged that Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, used NSO Pegasus software from Israel to hack Amazon billionaire Jeff Bezos' iPhone. For the record, NSO officials deny that the company is involved in any domestic spying on American citizens. Now, Russia Today's Arabic channel invited me to appear on a live TV debate today with an Israeli news commentator from Jerusalem Post to discuss the NSO spying scandal. We'll show you the full debate later in today's program. Doc Burkhart is off today. Matt Scow is here in his place. And, of course, Edward Zoll is here with me. Gentlemen, glad to have you here.
Good to be here.
What a day.
Been an amazing day.
Amazing month.
The whole month, January. We're at the end of the month, the first month of the new year, and it's been a very blessed month.
It flew by, but wow, a lot of things had happened to Little True News, huh?
Yeah, well, we've been attacked more this month than any time in our history, but we've been blessed more this month than any time in our history. So I would say to my enemies, keep attacking me. All right? I don't particularly like that system, the way it works in the kingdom of God. But when Jesus said, when his enemies attack you and say all manner of evil against you, you're blessed.
Yes.
And I would tell you, we've had a blessed month.
Amen.
So we want to thank our enemies for being so nasty to us, and we forgive you, and we bless you, and we just hope that you come to know Jesus someday. All right, so today we're talking about NSO. This is the Israeli company that allegedly was involved in their software, their product. Right,
The Pegasus malware.
Because their attitude is, we just sell software. We don't know what people do with our software.
We just don't. We only have a little back door, a little key there.
We're just the gas station. We just sell the fuel. We don't know what the arsonists are doing with it.
Yeah, right. You know, and they're like, we only sell it to governments, and it's only to catch terrorists and criminals. Now, the story is that Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman acquired Pegasus, something that we speculated about a couple of years ago. You know, the people that criticize us for speculating. Well, it turned out our speculation was right, that Saudi Arabia purchased Pegasus. We said several years ago, we think Jared Kushner was involved. Now, several years ago, we were saying, we think Kushner's he's going to persuade the Arab nations to sell out the Palestinians. How's he going to do it? He's going to sell them Israeli spy technology, and they will betray the Palestinians because they'll have in their possession technology to spy inside their own country against their critics inside their country. Turned out we were absolutely right.
And it kind of boomeranged against Jared, because until he got hacked, or documents were looked on his phone through Saudi Arabia.
Yes, but that's not fully come out yet. Jeff Bezos of Amazon.
Right, yes.
All right. And
Everybody's
The same-
trying to spy on everybody.
Yes.
The same Jeff Bezos who traveled to Saudi Arabia on the eve of the 2016 election. The same Jeff Bezos who was in Riyadh when Jeffrey Epstein's plane was traveling at the same time to Riyadh on the eve of the election.
They think spying's dead. They think this is a Cold War thing. It's more sophisticated than ever.
Oh, look, this thing gets into your phone. They get this onto your phone.
Right.
It turns the phone into essentially a full-blown two-way
They're
microphone.
using the WhatsApp, all right, to do it. Of course, Facebook, which owns WhatsApp,
Has denied this.
they're denying it.
Right.
But they're using the WhatsApp to get the infected malware onto your phone. Once they get it onto your phone, they have access to everything on your phone.
That's your life. Our
And you
life
have
is
no idea that they're getting all the information from your phone.
And these terms of services, you click yes. You don't know who knows what's in there. They might have some legalities that they'll allow you to get hacked or whatever there. But we do know this hacking is occurring.
Yes,
It
and it
is
takes
happening.
control. Not only does it download everything that's on the phone, all the photographs, all the text messages, everything, but it also takes control of the camera and the microphone.
Yes.
And so people in Israel, in Unit 8200, are listening to you through your phone. They take control of your phone. I'm saying this to every American out there. Look, I want to bring this home to you. The Israelis have sophisticated software. They are scouring the internet every day for every human on the planet
and the clock
that
right now.
says
It is
something.
6:07 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it has been a nice day. I mean, really a medium day. It's winter. We didn't get any snow. It's actually been above freezing. Not enough to really super melt anything, but everything's been wet. So it's above freezing and staying that way tonight. We have enough cloud cover. It's kind of kept whatever you would call heat in. So still got to keep the fireplace going. Still got to keep the pellet burner going. The woods, what's the date today? What's jumping off the wall? Oh, they're next to the Big Muddy, which might have an earthquake anytime now, or at least may have had a little one.
Oh, gee, wonderful. It is 31 January 2020. It is Friday evening, is the last hour of the day and the week for the Intelligence Report. And that makes this Quartermaster's Corner. And it's cold here. Well, the Minnesota people wouldn't think it's cold. Hovering around 30, 32, that kind of stuff. I consider it cold, okay? I'm cranky and I don't like the cold, and there's been enough of it. I was hoping to get out and about and get in a little bit of playtime tomorrow, and I'm told, nope, it's too cold, too windy. Maybe Sunday. Well, Sunday ought to be good. It's supposed to spike up to 60 degrees Sunday. I don't know about the wind conditions, but it's supposed to get warm in the afternoon, so I'm looking forward to that. We'll see how that works. Let's see, I also heard a long-term forecast that we're going to be in for another 5 or 6 weeks of this kind of stuff. Apparently, waving a groundhog about in front of the cameras hasn't happened yet. That's another couple of days. But the weathermen are getting a jump on the game and giving their prognostications in advance. When I see that silly ritual with the groundhog, I have to wonder, what's the groundhog thinking about all of this? He's being held up in the air and waved around for the cameras, and the cameras are going clickety-clack, and all these humans are staring at him. He's probably going, I hope they're not going to eat me. But oh well. At least, he gets a meal ticket for the rest of the year in exchange for being waved around in the air once. I guess that's a pretty good deal. If you were a groundhog, that would be a pretty good deal for you, wouldn't you think? So.
Well, the poor groundhog wouldn't know what to do, right?
Well, yeah, but it's a great deal. I mean, he only has to work one day a year. The rest of the time they just, feed him leaves and stuff. What a bargain. Oh, well, I wouldn't want to be fed leaves and stuff in exchange for being held up in the air and waved around in front of cameras, but, I'm picky like that. All right. Any rate, what all is going on in our world? All sorts of interesting things are going on in our world. Most of them are not good. The big one right now in the corporate and alternate press and so on is the coronavirus, or let's call it beer virus. This is the background is that this is a variation of the common cold. It is air transmissible from humans. It looks a lot like regular influenzas and so on, but it's really contagious and it's fairly dangerous. Now, let's not panic over this thing. It is not the Black Plague, all right? Regular flu will land something like 0.1% of the people that come down with it in the hospital. That's 1 in 1,000. This one is 10 times worse. So if you come down with this one, you have a 1 in 100 chance of landing in the hospital and needing some attention. But people are dying from it. There are thousands, tens of thousands of flu deaths every year in the Western world, in the United States and so on. But most of those deaths are people in nursing homes and are already in the hospital for some other reason. They've got a compromised immune system. They've got, underlying problems, heart problems, whatever the case may be. So regular flu season kills an awful lot of people, but it's mostly just finishing off people that have one foot in the grave already. This one is a bit more effective. It is hitting people across the age ranges, but with emphasis on the youngest and oldest, as is usually the case. What's really interesting about this one is it came out of Wuhan province in China, the only province with a level 4 biological containment facility that we know of. What do you use a level 4 facility for? Storage and research on horrific pathogens. Just the sort of place that you would put a biological weapons facility if you have one. Of course, they would never have such a thing because they're communists, and that makes them good guys who would never, ever, ever cook up, bioweapons or anything of that sort, right? They would never do a thing like that. Only evil capitalists would do a thing like that. But something got loose. And the Chinese system being what it is, pretty much guaranteed that that was going to spread. One of the institutions in China is the so-called wet market. It is basically a medieval quality greengrocer and butcher shop combined. These are open-air markets which sell everything under the sun. There is no inspection of any sort. There's nobody walks through once a day taking swabs and checking for bacteria and so on. The floors and tables are simply hosed down at the end of the day. There's no bleach sprayed around or any other disinfectant or whatnot. What's more, the Chinese culture is such that people don't wash their hands. Even the physicians, unless they were trained abroad, don't wash their hands. They think that, you know, all you have to do is have the right frame of mind and eat some garlic and stuff like that. And, you know, disease isn't caused by bacteria and viruses and stuff. Well, the physicians know that it is. But there's still part of the culture that does not wash its hands very often. And when they do, they don't use soap. They just do it in water, period. If you go into a public restroom in China, you will find that there's no toilet paper because it's always stolen. The instant you put toilet paper out, somebody steals it. That's their culture. Anything that's free, they just snatch. Same thing with soap. If you put out soap, somebody'd steal it. They won't use it, but they'll steal it because this is part of their culture. You should see them behave the way they behave at a buffet. You know, they'll walk up to a buffet and they'll be stuffing things into plastic bags right in the open and so on. And, you know, they'll just be daring somebody to say anything about it. Generally, restaurant personnel don't have the gutsful motivation to intercede. So if a Chinese person from the mainland visits your buffet, they're going to walk out with 20 pounds of food because, you know, hey, there's no absolute restriction on my behavior, so I'll just do exactly as I please. This is the way they behave. You could see video of the way they behave in traffic. That's even worse. You know, being a pig at the buffet is one thing. Endangering everybody on the freeway is another, but both of them boil down to just fundamental, seeped into the bone selfishness and disregard for anyone who's not a relative. This is part of the culture, and they've got a long, long way to go until they become a civilized society, in my opinion. They, of course, think they are God's gift to the universe, but I am inclined to disagree. At any rate, they are running out of masks. What's available is being sucked down all around the planet because people are snatching them up in order to profit from them, to sell them at extreme markups on a black market or the eBay equivalents over there. That's a very Chinese behavior. Even in Europe, for instance, all of those supplies are being drawn down. 3M has announced that it's going into hyperdrive, trying to increase its production, that it's being sold out and so on. I think you can still get biological masks in the U.S. and Canada, but it's only a matter of time until the Chinese so-called students here, who are really just import-export agents using a student visa, draw those down as well. I've seen photographs of people with shopping carts just stacked to the ceiling, 2 feet above the rim of the cart, snatching up all the mess because, it's just a, gimme, grab thing for the Chinese. Always expect the mainland Chinese to behave like that. The Taiwanese actually are vastly more civilized. They are much more in tune with modern Western civilization in spite of also retaining the traditional culture that the mainland thinks it has. Mainland does not. They destroyed it all during the Great Leap backwards, and they've substituted a certain false pride and arrogance in place of what they obliterated some decades ago. At any rate, their sanitary procedures are essentially zero. In these wet markets, the customers handle the meat and put it back. The sellers handle the meat and put it back. Nobody is wearing gloves. Nobody washes their hands. Nobody covers their mouth when they sneeze or sneezes or coughs into their elbow or their sleeve or anything like that. They hawk up loogies and spit it right on the ground and the sidewalk and so forth. There's spray and spittle everywhere. Of course, any sort of pathogen is going to spread. And then they had Chinese New Year. What?
I said, hopefully it will spread all over China.
Well, yeah. I would love to see all of the CCP officials come down with it. The ordinary people are infected with a stupid and grubby culture, but I hate to see them, slaughtered by this sort of incompetence just because they have a crappy culture. But at any rate, then they got Chinese New Year. And if you think Thanksgiving in the West is a bug house, you've seen nothing until Chinese New Year. They have 3 weeks of vacation or unpaid leave or whatever it is for New Year. So everybody goes home wherever home might be, which means that something like a quarter of the population ups and shuffles around. You've heard the phrase Chinese fire drill. It's a stunt that teenagers pull at a stoplight. Everybody jumps out of the car, runs once around the car, and jumps back in again. The whole country does that. And this happened just after an outbreak of this bug. So everybody's flying and driving and taking buses and trains and stuff all over the country, carrying this stuff all over the country. And in typical Chinese fashion, they actually brag and celebrate about evading the quarantines. So, there are people on social media saying, haha, I've got symptoms and I sneaked through and I got over to Taiwan, and this kind of stuff. They're bragging that they're being putses and spreading disease. They think it's clever. They're pleased with themselves. Man, absolutely unreal. We've actually just today instituted some very mild quarantine measures on people coming from mainland China and especially from Wuhan province, but that's only going to slow things down a little bit. The problem with this bug is there's no quick and easy test for it, and it spreads before you are symptomatic. So it's sort of the perfect bug for propagation purposes. I do have something for the listeners. Now, I mentioned that masks are becoming scarce and people are running around. Well-meaning people are sucking them up and sending them off to China. They're, of course, being diverted into the black market and not being delivered to hospitals and stuff because you've got to expect that. Any sort of dishonesty or corruption you can imagine is going to be the norm over there. Greedy profiteers are sucking them down as fast as they can as well, but they haven't got them all yet. The source that I used some years ago when I bought my biological mask, these are separate from gas masks. I don't think it's appropriate to be wearing a gas mask in the grocery store, for instance, if things get bad enough to protect yourself on that kind of trip. A regular fabric mask is the way to go. The surgical masks or the cloth ones are not going to cut it. They're just intended to retain spittle and so on to protect the surgical patient from the doctor. They do not protect the wearer of the mask in any significant fashion. What you want is a bare minimum of an N95, that is November 9.5 mask. That's a rating of its ability to filter incoming particles. Better than that is the N100 mask, which is rated to filter 99.97% of particles down to 0.3 microns. Those are the ones you really want if you can get them. The source that I used, because I did a lot of shopping and found the best price I could at the time, but is a little bit obscure, But as of today, their website claims that they are in stock. So sharpen up your pencil if you want to go shopping on this stuff and punch in an order quickly, because they'll probably be vacuumed out soon if they have not been already. Sometimes the websites lag reality. The source that I used some years ago and claims today to have stock is called librarydust.com. That has a hyphen in the middle, so it is library-dust.com. Masks are not their primary emphasis. They are actually concerned with the health problems that librarians who handle paper books, those are a disappearing breed, of course, you know, who would ever want to have a paper book, face, you know, dust and mites and various things of this sort actually do affect the health of librarians in traditional libraries. And this place sells vacuum cleaners and HEPA filters and, you know, this, that, and the other thing, all oriented toward that goal. The part of their inventory that we're interested in is the masks. And they sell the 3M N100 masks, and they claim to have inventory. These masks will cost you $8.75 each, or you can get 20 of them for $175. Obviously, 20 of them is a better deal. Whether they're continuing to sell chunks of 20 during a frenzy like this, I don't know. Whether they actually have inventory, I don't know. I didn't try to telephone them and ask them about their inventory. But they claim to have inventory at this point to be in stock. So if you're looking for that sort of stuff, hopefully, you know, for, you know, household and friends and family and that kind of stuff, that is a source. That's the one that I used in the past. They claim to have inventory now. I guarantee you they will not within a few days or a week or whatnot. So move now if you want to. Library-dust.com, and their listed prices are $8.75 a piece or $20 for $175 of the N100 masks. Do not compare these against the N95s. They're not the same critter. The November 100 masks are the ones that perform to the standard that you want if there's a dangerous pathogen around. So, having yammered for half an hour, I'm going to give Mark a few minutes to talk. Go ahead.
Oh, no. On the masks, this is something we've been touching on. It's one of the areas where we've seen the inventory of the conventionals diminishing on a daily basis. I think we started to see the spike last night where it really doubled yet again. A week ago, as I pointed out, you know, this was, you know, just kind of chatter. A week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Hey, pick up the masks. They're cheap. A lot of people have been. The less expensive but mid-grade masks are what is being absorbed first. The more expensive masks, I'm sure, are moving. One of the other things that has started to disappear are the spare filters, but we always do. Whenever we buy them, we buy a case of filters from either Gun Parts Corp. or we buy spare filters from the other sources that we've pointed out here. The big thing to remember is the discussion about this with the medical personnel at the Chinese end was, well, the face mask is nice, but remember, they can be contracted through the eyes. So, of course, now it doesn't help you're doing the, you know, hack, cough, hack, etc. So facial protection in general is a plus. I know we got a caller. Hold on for just a second. One of the things that I did check on in the last couple hours here, the Chinese masks. I mentioned that, well, they've almost doubled in price at least with the over-the-counter work. In other words, if you go look for them at Wish, you'll find that they're about an additional $15, $20 more expensive for the ones that were about $18. That's consistent, but now the next problem is they've started to disappear. So like BK said, the companies you're dealing with like on Wish and Deal Extreme are China. Well, if China's buying them, they're not sending them to you. Okay, so that's another thing everybody's been asking about. Well, it looks like they're just not wanting to sell them to us. It's like, no, they've already sold them. we've kind of explained this for years, guys. Chemical protection, NBC, nuclear, biological, chemical protection, is a limited industry. Even with the PPE equipment, if you turn to the industry where they make masks and they produce them for working at Dow Chemical or down the street at the paint shop, there's only so many out there, and the demand would instantly far exceed any available inventory.
Right. Remember that in this context, we're talking about the disposable masks that are white fabric and secured around your head with a piece of elastic.
Or
and so
around the
on.
ears, and there's
Right.
different ways that they hold them in place. And those are available in some cases at resale points too, so we need to look around. But the ones that you mentioned, remember, they serve another purpose. If you have field medical personnel, face mask and other protective technology is something you are all going to want in your inventory. I just collected a bunch of those today, and they went into the totes here. So that's just the way it goes. I think we have a caller, though. Who's patient? Caller, jump in there.
This is BC. I just wanted to let everybody be aware of the fact that Mike Adams has got a wonderful podcast site called the HealthRangerReport.com.
Yep.
HealthRangerReport.com. That's Mike Adams. And his current podcast, which I believe was posted either this morning or late last night, is about a 25-minute expose on this topic. And, of course, he's extremely well-versed on, health matters and science. And his wife's from, I think, Thailand or Hong Kong, one of the two, and he speaks Mandarin and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, to get quickly to the point, he's saying that the people that contract this particular virus, they will have permanent heart damage. So that is something that even if you survive it, you will retain permanent, lifelong heart damage to some degree or another. I would imagine the more severe cases will probably have a more severe heart damage than the others who whatever. But I encourage everybody to go listen to his little podcast. It's well worth listening to. It's very, very informative, and he's got his finger on the pulse for sure. That's Mike Adams, the HealthRangerReport.com.
Very good. Appreciate that. Thank you. And that's BC. Do we have anybody else? Another voice? I heard somebody. Do we have another caller? I think we're expecting Dave also. Dave from Michigan here. Is Dave up yet? And a 1 and a 2. Very good. Okay, BK, go ahead. Jump in there, please.
Okay, so I will repeat one last time. The vendor that I used in the past and claims to have inventory at this point is called library-dust.com. Library-dust.com. And I don't guarantee that they've got inventory. Their website claims they do, and that's the data that I have on them. I'm not in the market. I got my case of those, and we're all set. They're infinite shelf life, and they're all in plastic bags individually wrapped and all that kind of good stuff as they come. So it's not a wasting asset like a lot of things. On other fronts, I've been hammering this, and people don't want to hear it. I'm sure there's an awful lot of resistance and so on and so forth. The cryptos that were at, Bitcoin last 2 weeks ago was at $8,900. And today it is down to $9,350. What? Down from 8,900 to 9,300 something? Yeah, because it touched 9,500 and then came down to 9,300. Gang, I have no crystal ball. This is not financial advice. There's absolutely no warranty whatsoever, to my opinion. I think we're getting into the beginning of the next market cycle. I will remind people that back in 2017, when things went berserk, most of the gains occurred in a period of 3 weeks. The prices kind of ran up, retraced a little, ran up, retraced a little, as they normally do. They started gaining some momentum, and then the afterburners kicked in, and something like half of the gain of that run occurred in a 3-week period. If you're sitting around twiddling your thumbs and saying, oh, well, I don't think that I want to participate in that, or I don't know how to do that, or I'll get around to it sometime. Bear in mind that there are something like 20 million people now with accounts on the exchanges, but last time people tried to get in and they couldn't because the exchanges are simply jammed and overwhelmed with new applications, and they can't just handle it in a business-like fashion the way normal businesses do. They have to do the financial surveillance garbage, the know your customer and anti-money laundering stuff, KYC and AML, and scan your driver's license and attach that, and some human has to look at it and cross-references against databases and so on. This has nothing whatsoever to do with what they claim. They claim that it has to do with massive drug money laundering and all this kind of good stuff. That is sheerest BS. The money laundering is being done by the big banks and the CIA, and you are not. What they're doing is this is financial surveillance. They want to say who's doing what so they can figure out how to rip you off worse. This is the standard sort of thing that you see in a deteriorating financial environment where, politically connected scumbags get to write the rules to benefit themselves. And that's the world we're living in right now. Pardon the editorial. But the fact of the matter is that it takes time to sign up on these exchanges if you want to get in. You will not be able to get in if there's a crush. If these things light on fire and start heading north, people will be stampeding into the exchanges. People that have not previously been doing this, and they'll be backlogged for weeks or months. And it could, the next big spike could be over in weeks or months. It will be over in weeks or months. I don't know when it's going to start. Nobody does for sure. Nobody has a crystal ball. I have my opinion. You can have your opinion. But I guarantee you that if you sit around thinking, well, maybe I'll do this sometime, you're going to miss the boat, because when it becomes so obvious that even the foot draggers decide to get involved, it's going to be too late. You're going to find that, you're trying to fit through a door and there's already 15 people corked, plugged in like, wine corks into that door trying to get through. You're not going to. So if you listen to BK at all, at least get a freaking account on one of the major exchanges. There's a lot of them. There's the absolute worst one is the biggest one in the U.S. That's Coinbase. Don't deal with Coinbase. There's Bittrex. There's Kraken. There's Gemini. There are a number of legitimate exchanges out there that are not Coinbase. Thank you very much. If you do choose to sign up with Coinbase against my recommendations, you may find that they'll tell you something like, oh, you can only buy $200 worth of this week. And if you're really good, maybe we'll increase your allowance in a week or 3 or a month or something. All right? That's the sort of behavior they have inflicted on people in the past, and you can expect them to do it again. So I do not recommend that particular outfit, but do create an account someplace so at least you have the facility online and ready to go if you should decide to get off the dime. Another one is Abra, A-B-R-A. That is an app only. It is an outfit that's run out of the Philippines, so they're plugged into the Western banking system. They have limitations of like $1,000 a week or something in or out. But most of us, that's not any kind of inconvenience at all, because, how many of us are, throwing around tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars? Sure, not me. Probably not most of the people listening. So, $1,000 is a great amount if you can put that much into the market and not worry about it too much. That would be awesome. And that you can do right off the bat with Abra. So that is a sufficient gateway into and out of the cryptos. It's a gateway between the fiat world and the crypto world. So that's an available one. The app is free. You can get in there and you can, give them their email address and all this kind of good stuff. And you can use your debit card or whatnot if you choose to do that sort of thing. So that is one that I recommend. Once you've bought something there, get it into a wallet that you control. The one that I like best is called Exodus. You can download that for PC, Mac, Linux at exodus.io. It also is free. It's connected on the back end with an exchange called Shapeshift, which will do almost anything to anything. Not quite 100%, but almost. And Exodus gets a little skim of the transaction fees that the exchange charges. That's their financial basis. And they seem to be staying in business and doing a good job. I know from personal experience that their tech support is absolutely awesome. You email those guys, you'll probably get a response within 10 minutes. Just absolutely impressive as all get out should you need any tech support. Bear in mind that cryptos is a technology for adults. If you mess around, if you're careless, if you lose your cryptographic keys and so on, nobody can help you. That's the flip side of it's going to be really, really super hard for anybody to steal your stuff. Basically, if we switch over to a system that's based on crypto, I think we will see a skyrocketing rate of kidnaps, because the only way you're going to be able to steal money from people is not take the money in their cash and run away down the street. It's going to be grab these guys and wave around the bolt cutter and say, how many fingers do you want to lose before you give me your password? That's the way crime is going to go. So kidnapping is a downside of the system. Expect that. Not right now, but in due course. However, that's a digression. If you do not have some sort of gateway set up between the fiat world and the crypto world, I say do it now. You don't have to run any money through it if you don't want to, but if you wait for a crush and the hysteria and everything's going parabolic, you're not going to be able to get in. If you establish an account now and go through all the BS, KYC, AML, all that sort of blah, blah garbage that's inflicted on the U.S. public, get it behind you, then you will be able to function. So it is my opinion that we're getting really close to the time when you're going to regret not getting on that train if you did not get on that train. Now, I can be wrong. BK has been early and wrong on things in the past, and I might be wrong again. This is my opinion, and it comes with absolutely no warranty whatsoever. Your money back. You paid $0.00 for this, opinion, not advice, opinion, and that's exactly what you might value it at. That's fine with me. I've had my say. If I'm right, I'll say I told you so, and I'm not going to have a whole lot of sympathy for somebody who sat in the corner, crossed his arms, stuck out his lower lip, and said, I'm not gonna, and then 6 months later he says, well, how come I'm not doing as well as I should? Well, I told you. So that's my little rant on that topic. But we're pushing up against 10 grand. We're getting close to that. There's good reason to believe that there's going to be a lot of resistance at around 10.5, 11,000. There are a lot of people that got into the market around 11 to 12,000 2 years ago, and a lot of them are just looking to get back out again at their old price. So there should be a lot of resistance at that point. And once those people have shed their cryptos and gotten out and congratulated themselves on, I got back out again whole, then there's not going to be a lot of selling going on above that price. So the price starts to drift above that. There's very little reason for it to moderate before 20, 30, 35, something along those lines. So This is my opinion. It's not financial advisor advice because I'm not a financial advisor. This is old BK's thoughts. And if I'm right, I told you so. And if I'm wrong, it won't be the first time I've been wrong, and it won't be the last time I've been wrong. But each time I don't think I am. And this time also I don't think I am. So, Mark?
No, the numbers speak for themselves. Again, the issue is some of the people listening simply may not be able to, but others certainly can step up to the plate and decide whether or not they want to get into an additional investment. We've had this conversation about diversification for the longest time. You know, how things need to be, dealt with to ensure that if you've got a certain number of digits, you're ready to be able to utilize them at your discretion. And if they evacuate or dispose of or destroy one venue, the idea is to have others on hand. Again, I mean, distributed and hidden away, by the way. There's different locations where they can be predisposed so that they're not with all the rest of your wealth. That's another thing we haven't talked enough about. Just like we do with caching, we need to do the same, caching of economic resources. In the military, or actually when I was in the military, I was coached to make 3 copies of everything that I pulled from my 201 file. And I did. I religiously did that. And it saved me more than a few times where these buggers tried to, of course, screw with, the records one way or another. Most important is that 2 of those caches were completely away from me, totally disassociated with me or anybody that could be related to me, could be identified. And that was, again, something that I was taught from people who had been in service for many, many, many years, for decades. And they knew exactly how the system fails you or will try to screw you. Your economic situation is the same way. Trump just signed this equivalent to the new NAFTA and GATT, which, by the way, is NAFTA and GATT Phase 3. They've come up with a product name change to make you believe it's something else. It's not. In fact, if you go back to 1992 and read up on everything about NAFTA and GATT that was over the counter, which is what there's a video that was done by a couple of young men. They're now 30 years older. Figure it out. They were in their 20s. And they went literally to Mexico, and in Mexico they mapped everything out because they assumed that if you were asking about it, you were interested in being part of it. And all of the elements that we now know, that they would absolutely, claim that's just crazy patriot mythology. Every element of their video was 100% correct. And it was based on not them talking, but them talking to the people who are your enemies.
What's the title of that?
Yeah, so again, your money's not guaranteed. I'm watching my retirement. I've got a retirement, 2 retirement packages. The one is written in stone. It's one of the oldest of its type, and they're now trying to figure out how to alter the law to fiddle fart with those funds. Now, they're supposed to be written in stone, blah, 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 blah. I said this years ago, and I've said this even on the air. I figure by the time that we get to the point where, I'm supposed to collect something, they'll already be stealing from it.
Yeah, I've been telling people for literally decades that I think that when I file for social, I'll get my $1,000 a month. I also think that I'll go to Denny's, I'll have lunch, I'll sign over the check, and I'll have to come up with the extra out of pocket.
Yeah, where am I going to get the rest from? Oh God, I'm going to have to wash dishes, and then there's still 29 more days left in the month. Think about that.
Mark.
I heard another voice. Go ahead, caller. Who do we have?
Mike, I was just thinking the timing of this whole Asian flu thing, the possibility that we are literally that close to a complete global economic collapse, that this bug was released to cause so much disruption globally that it'll take people's minds off of a dollar collapse. Because I think we're really on the precipice.
Right, there's several different. This is a convergence. There are several things happening simultaneously. That's why like I said, remember, they have to get the guns because otherwise people will go shoot who's responsible. I just do the numbers, just with all the parents who have had children stolen from them. If this thing goes into a shooting war, and I argue plant the seed with every one of them you talk to in social media. You know what? If this thing kicks off, anybody who has been wronged by the child perverted services, they're not going to live very long. The bad guys on the other side, child perverted services is going to cease to exist. Now there's 260-some thousand kids grabbed in the year 2016, something that Bob Miner posted. So it's like, well, there's at least two parents. Now maybe we'll pare back. Some of those are double and triple kids in the same family, but you're looking at a mom and a dad, or at least mom or at least dad. That's probably close to 500,000 people with a itchy trigger finger or a machete in their hand. That's just one element of people who hate what they see in front of them. The other side has to try to disarm us. And the thing is that if they don't, China can't foreclose. The foreigners can't fiddle fart with all the rest of these accounts that technically they can't touch. Look what they just stole from Social Security here just in the last few weeks. Look at how much is missing right now that they just pulled again from a fund that was not supposed to be touched. It was supposed to be in a big steel box, and it was protected so that when they drew from it for the people who legitimately were part of it, then they were going to get it. But they immediately found every way to cook the books.
They've never done that before.
Yeah, right. So here again, this is why you diversify. The rich diversify. If they lose everything in a category, the idea is that while everybody else lost everything in the same category, their head is still above water because they have the other straws sticking up above the surface.
The other point that I want to make when I'm making one of these harangues about cryptos is that people say, well, I can't afford a whole Bitcoin. You don't have to afford a whole Bitcoin. The things divide 100 million to 1 if you want to. So, anybody who's pulling a paycheck and tells me he can't put $10 a week into something, I don't believe them.
You guys want to know how I diversify?
I can guess. Go ahead.
Well, let's see. The wallet in my gray suit, the wallet in my blue suit, the wallet under my bed. I don't trust anybody of those.
Are they all full of FRNs though?
No, all kinds of stuff.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I have no confidence in where this is going. Okay, as far as what we're going to get out, we're going to get nothing out of it. My argument has been that we're going to be working pretty much the rest of our lives. Even if we win, we're going to be rebuilding what it is that they've done so much damage to, or that, again, to reestablish the traditional mechanisms that were in place, which were more efficient and were solvent. And that's one of the problems that we're going to face, because we're going to have to be pathfinders for the people who are not up to speed. But in the meantime, again, the diversification process, like I said, is, for instance, the retirement package. I can't pull the money from that. It was fixed when I started working at the University of Michigan. It was mandatory. I buy into that. I can't buy out of it. I can't card out of it and cash out of it. I've got to ride that until they destroy it. And that's how I see it right now, because I'm getting all these notices that, the Fed's going to change the law on this, and the state wants to change the law on that, and all it has to do with is how they can come in and suck resources out of these accounts.
Right. For the time being, however, at least you can sip from it, and that's something.
For as long as we can. All of these are the same way. Even these ideas of the cryptocurrency, you have to take it and divest it and move it at the time when you perceive that there is a threat. But this is true of all of the elements of what we're dealing with in terms of the different types of investments that we have. We capitalize on them at a key point, and that's where you're surfing on these strange waves. You're going to have to pick the time when that resource can be used or best used and can convert it into something next that's useful, so that you can translate wealth. That's what you're constantly doing in a roller coaster environment like this. Black markets do it all the time. That's how black markets survive. What is in with the black market? What is out with the black market? That's basically, there's whole groups of people who get really, really good at, in fact, whole populations do. Korea, you always joke about it in MASH, remember? That the Koreans had this whole black market operation going. Well, in reality, it was a free market economy, but they didn't want to call it that. It was the black market. Well, what it comes down
it was the unauthorized market.
Yeah, and so it truly was the free market that the state and our invading government wouldn't allow. That's disavowed. That was not under their control. Well, yep, that's a good thing. But guess what? You know, the bottom line is every time they tried to apply the same controls to it over and over again, what happened over and over again is that these organizations would always be a step ahead of whatever it is they were trying to do to reel them in. And that's really what you're trying to do with the diversification of resources, gold, silver, electronic currency. I don't care if it's petunias. Of course, they're very non-tangible. But whatever it is, clamshells, whatever seems to be the mechanism that you want a percentage of there because of what's going to be needed for the future, or just the short future, as in just around the corner, soon to be the present. We all know that one of the currencies we all invest in are, that's right, ammunition and food. Well, food even is a currency, as you know. You have discussions with people who survived what happened with Russia or the Ukraine. Food was a life and death commodity.
And if we have some sort of bad outbreak of this coronavirus, and you decide to button up in your house for 3 weeks or something like that while things get bad, your main issue is going to be heat and food. So have some.
Yeah, I think one of the funny things that, every time you do that, I'm thinking it's either we have to blame Smith Corona typewriter or those beer makers in Mexico, and I'm not sure which.
Right, the beer virus.
Everybody's finally picked that up. It's like, yeah, coronavirus. Oh, they could have picked another name, but no, somebody wasn't really thinking this through because immediately the dark humor sets in, and there's people going, this is not funny. It's like, no matter how hard you try, someone's going to laugh about something. In this case, you picked the wrong name.
Corona means crown. And if you look at the electron microscope images of this virus, it makes sense that they would have named this class like that because it kind of, they're circular and these little things sticking out of it and so on. So that's fine. But it's unfortunate for the beer company. It's unfortunate for the beer company.
Yeah, the guy was Hispanic that was looking through the microscope?
Quite possibly. I don't know.
I think he had a beer in hand. I think he was looking at that microscope. He thought about it for a minute. He goes, yeah, that's the name. That'll do.
Or someone tried to call it the crown virus, and somebody else said, oh, that doesn't sound fancy enough. They adjusted
or
it.
Scary enough, right? SARS. Makes you go, oh, my God, SARS, it's coming for me. Which, by the way, again, we will remind everybody that this latest fiasco is, unlike, Hepa pura durafia siametzian, bongo disease, this is an offshoot of SARS. So that's another thing that if you look at the patent, which is amazing, as everybody keeps pointing out, how could you patent a disease months before it shows up out in the public's, venue? Well, it's real easy when you make it. So the patent, identifies it as being not a mild, but a specific offshoot of the SARS battery that has already been experienced several years ago.
Well, the patents are all about these bio companies trying to take advantage and stiff people on vaccines and that kind of stuff. It's just greedy, lawyerish type behavior.
Now, again, we're almost to the top here. I will remind you, as I said, the gas mask, there's a mix, but the inventory is about half consumed right now. You'll notice that in the next day, if you just keep surveying the sites that we've been mentioning, keepshooting.com, majorsurplus.com, Coleman's.com, Sportsman's Guide has a bunch of stuff, but not as much as they had a few days ago. And the same is true for most any of them. If you find that, any of the companies you'd like to look at, some of them I'm not mentioning because I already talked to them, and today they have nothing. A couple of the companies have filters. They have one filter, and that's it. The filter they have, example is militaryclothing.com. They have 10 of the M10M filter sets. for $15, which means $1.50 a set. You can't beat that price. And it's
not my favorite style because, that's an internal filter. You got to take the mask off in order to swap the filter, or have a second mask, set up the second mask, swap. I don't like that, but, it beats the heck out of nothing.
Right. The idea is a lot of you have them, and that's the filter they have. They don't have any. They don't have any 40s, don't have any 60s, they don't have any masks. We have one mask pictured left, and they're saying, well, they'll get some more in September. Now, I believe that was supposed to be September of last year, okay? So they haven't got any more masks. Other companies, if you'll notice, like Sportsman's Guide, when they go out of a model, they have a different one that they've picked up. That's because it's one of the models they didn't buy from their wholesalers. And they decided that since they've lost an item, they wanted to put another item in. You'll notice several of those say new next to the picture. They are new for Sportsman's Guide. Another one I haven't mentioned, and I don't, but it's going to be, basically catch as catch can. Cheaper than dirt. I didn't look to see what they have. I hate the bastard. I have no use for the character. He bellied over he bellowed over when Bummer was in about the guns. So from that point forward, he's like Kmart. He's out of my mind. But Cheaper Than Dirt may have some NBC protection equipment. See what they have, and then don't forget BudK.com. BudK.com. They're a knife company, but they do have some other items, and one of the things they do have are a few models of gas masks, and they have some spare filters. So if we keep looking through these sites, we're going to see them eaten up. But if you know where to look for the little odds and ends points, gunpartscorp.com, good old Gun Parts Corp. I ordered another case of those filters. Also, a quantity of the 60 millimeter masks, the one that we ordered, already out of. Not from Gun Parts. They still have 2 masks left, it looks like, maybe 3, but they have sold out of some of the others. They do have a brand new M9 in the can for a really good price. It's still sealed in the can. All the components are sealed. So it is a really good price, especially for storage, because you got the 60 millimeter filters in the case, stored properly. And then you've got the gas mask in the ham cans, guys. These are sealed for a century, and those are about $32 a piece. You can't beat that. You can put those up in your cabin, and nothing can get to them. You leave them up in the cabin just the way they are. Mice can't nibble on them. Nothing's going to get into the can. The filters are in a tight system too, the same way. They can't do anything to those. And you could store those in a place where you've got a remote location, and you could fire and forget, so to speak. You put them in the bunker, they're safe. You put them up, in one of the bedrooms, they're safe. Common sense. And then when you need them, when you get to the location, then you open everything up and you use it as you feel the need. But as long as you need strategic reserve or tactical reserve equipment, there's a lot of stuff out there still stored properly, ready to use, the way the military does it. And it works just fine for you on the shelf, just the way it is, waiting to be brand new out of the can, unissued. So that's a good...
We're at the top.
Yes, we are. Also, again, don't forget Sportsman's Guide. Like I said, go through their inventory. If we have anything else happening, guys, we've got reconnaissance going on right now here in Michigan. We have deployments inside sections of different parts of the state, not out by the main road. These are locations we've been watching. Activity started a couple of days ago, or maybe, 2 to 3 days ago. It's not a National Guard deployment. They aren't winging around on the road. They're back in on the countryside, and they're prepared locations. Uniformed, camouflaged military personnel or personnel of some kind, tactical vehicles, and camouflage-covered hard points or other armored vehicles that have been deployed. Again, we're doing a 24 survey for 72 hours, 24-hour a day. They're staying in the field at night. These are not people going home to the apartment or going back to the guard center or anything like that and then going home. This is something else, and it's in multiple locations. So we will have photographs, we will have videos, and we will have aerial reconnaissance. That's taking place right now with our infrared, our thermal, even as I'm talking to you right now in the air. They're going over those locations. Our republic,
Death to the New World Order.
we shall prevail, ladies and gentlemen. The empire is on the run.
We're on the march both day and night.
Hoorah. Keep them flat, beat them down hard, don't let them get back up, and then go find the bugger who sent them. DK, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
You guys all have a good weekend. Ed taking over, more LTR coming up. Again, watch your six, pay attention, and help each other out if there's a problem. Head towards the war. God bless. Bye-bye.
Gentlemen, prepare to defend yourselves.